Welcome to this presentation by the James Smith Company. Today's topic is a real estate investor's guide to due diligence. For more helpful real estate investing information, be sure to visit JamesSmithSeries.com. James Smith's company and affiliates are providing this information for general educational purposes only. Before making any decisions regarding tax, business, estate, or financial planning, please consult a respectively licensed professional. Let's jump right into the meat of our topic. Simply put, due diligence is the process of analyzing a piece of real estate prior to closing. The closing timeline, as depicted at the bottom of the screen, is going to begin at the left and end at the right. A closing period is the period of time that exists between the point where an investor puts a piece of property under contract and the point in time where he actually purchases the property, which is referred to as a closing. Due diligence breaks down into two main categories. First, there's physical due diligence, and second, there's financial due diligence. It's more common for someone to jump into the physical due diligence early on in the closing period, where it's also more common for the financial due diligence to occur at the end. Investors can obviously switch this up, but this simply appears to be a very general trend. In the physical due diligence, the first item that people have to check off their list is the property inspection. This really starts from the first time you actually visit the property and includes everything from your sense of the neighborhood, of the exterior and the interior of the property, right down to a fully qualified individual coming into the property and conducting a formal property inspection. And in order to have a property inspector come through, they are going to be licensed, they are going to be certified, and oftentimes, if you're financing a property through a lender, they're going to require a full property inspection. An inspector would be able to identify things such as potentially a cracked foundation, mold, or other issues that may not jump out to the untrained eye. You'll also have a property appraisal. Property appraisal is merely the process of having an appraiser come out to the property, and they're going to look at, usually if you're talking about residential real estate, comparables. So they're going to compare your property to similar properties within usually a 3, 1, and a 5-mile radius. Another thing that's very helpful to get in the physical due diligence period are repair quotes. Repair quotes are going to help you with leverage if you're a buyer, to help reduce the purchase price or to help to get the seller to help you cover your closing costs. These are very important for you to have repair quotes before you purchase a property, because the worst thing you could do is to purchase a property without any idea of what or how much money it's going to take to bring the property up to the condition that you would like to have the property in. So often people purchase properties without any concept of how much money they're going to have to put into it to bring it into a market condition. So make sure you have your repair quotes up front during your due diligence period. It's always a good idea to get a preliminary title report. Preliminary title report can be conducted by any title company, and basically what it's going to do is it's going to disclose who currently owns the property, and it will give you a good idea if they have the ability by themselves to even sell the property to you. A preliminary title report is very important if you're purchasing a property and perhaps the seller of the property inherited the property through some type of a probate. You would want to make sure that they have clear title to be able to transfer it to you, because you don't want to go through the financial due diligence and realize later on down the line that they don't even have an ability to sell you the property. This will save a lot of headaches. A preliminary title report can usually be attained for somewhere around $100. Insurance claim report. If you're purchasing a property that is older or you think might have certain types of repairs, but you're just not sure, it's always a good idea to get an insurance claim report. This is a report from the seller's insurance company, and it's going to disclose any claims that were made against the insurance policy. And again, this comes directly from the insurance company. Legal use. If you're purchasing a property for the purpose of renting it out or any type of development or improvement, you want to make sure that your intended use for the property is legally compliant with the local, county, and municipal rules. So you want to make sure that you would have the legal ability to actually rent a property out. If it's multifamily, you want to make sure that you have the legal ability to have multiple tenants inside the property, and this is simply checking up on the legal use. Also make sure to check for easements. Sometimes people will buy a piece of property, it's very common in raw land, and they don't even have a right to access their land because their land may be landlocked. Check for easements, meaning a right of access, or if you own a piece of property, somebody else might actually own an easement on your land. So check to make sure that there aren't any easements on the property, and if they are, make sure that they're fully disclosed and you're okay with them. Another thing that's important is to check for property rights. This occurs very commonly in rural land, where a person is going to buy a piece of property and they have the right to build on top of their land, but they don't own the water rights or they don't own the mineral rights. This isn't always very important, but water rights are very valuable. And if you're going to purchase a property and you're going to put a house on it, you obviously need to have water rights if you're not connected to a city water grid. So these could be very important in a rural scenario where you want to make sure that you have the right to dig a well. Also, make sure you check the 10-year plan if you're doing any type of development. The reason why is a 10-year plan, which is made available through a planning and zoning department, is going to tell you where the future growth is going. So it'll give you an idea where the new exits are going to be put in on a freeway, or where the city just generally feels like the growth is going to move toward, and they'll also give you a pretty good idea of what the future zoning is going to look like. This could significantly increase or decrease the value of your property, so it's usually a pretty good idea to check a 10-year plan. These have a lot of different names, but basically you're going to go to a planning and zoning department and get an idea of what they intend to do in your general area over the next 10 years. And most planning and zoning departments do have this plan. Moving over on the financial side, never, not ever, ever, ever buy a property without running a cash flow analysis. April 15th, when you're doing your taxes, is a very bad time to figure out whether you're in the red or in the black on your real estate. Make sure you do an analysis before you purchase your property. In order to do a property cash flow analysis, you're going to have to take into account rental income, your tax liability, your debt service, which is your principal and interest payments on your loan, your repair quotes, vacancy, and make sure that from your tenants that are paying your rental income, that your tenants are actually valid tenants. One of the ways to do this is to get all of the tenants to sign something known as a letter of estoppel. A letter of estoppel, simply put, means that a tenant is signing a pledge that they are a valid tenant and that the landlord didn't move them in the day before simply to make it look as though the property actually had tenants inside of it. Believe it or not, some landlords will do that. So it's a good idea if you're running a cash flow analysis and let's say you have 20 or 30 or 40 tenants, it might be a good idea to go through and have those tenants sign a letter of estoppel. Again, it's a basic affidavit where the tenant says, I have a valid lease. I'm not here because the landlord asked me to be here. I'm here because I'm actually renting this property. You want to make sure that your tenant and your rental income is truly valid. Always make sure that you inspect the leases. The reason why is because if you're purchasing a property and there's a tenant currently in the property, you inherit not only the tenant but the lease. And you don't have a right to change that lease until the lease comes up and it expires and you renew the lease, at which point you would have an opportunity to offer them a different lease. So make sure you inspect the existing leases on the property. And finally, number one mistake most novice investors make is they don't shop for financing. They simply go to one lender, they're given one quote, and they take it. You have to recognize that banks and lenders want your business and they're willing to compete for it. And if they give you a quote with a certain rate, if you have another quote with a different rate from another financial institution, it's very likely that they are going to be willing to compete against that. Now in today's market, if you're talking about alternative prime or subprime, it may not be as likely that there's going to be as much competition. But any type of financing in the prime marketplace, you should see a fair amount of robust competition. So make sure you shop for your financing. For more helpful information on real estate investing, again, be sure to visit JamesSmithSeries.com, where we have an extensive array of real estate information such as credit repair, tackling the tax code, commercial real estate, profiting from tax liens and tax deeds, creative financing, and getting started. We'll see you at JamesSmithSeries.com.